It seems AEW can't catch a break, can they? I mean, if it's not the media scrum, that's causing problems and all that, if it's not Tony Khan calling out the fans on a recent edition of Busted Open Radio, then it's Sammy Guevara and Andrade El Idolo. And what I mean by that is, apparently they've been getting into some beef on social media. And Sammy basically told Andrade to F off, go away, and go back to WWE and something like that. And Andrade responded by saying, okay, I'll see your ass tomorrow night on Dynamite. And guess what happened? Yeah, he saw him at Dynamite, but he didn't see him as part of an angle that you would see on television. No. He didn't see him in that manner. No. What happened is apparently they found each other backstage and got into a fisticuffs of an altercation. Nothing like Sammy and Eddie, Sammy Guevara, Eddie Kingston. No. At least they apologized to each other for what happened, and Eddie accepted the punishment. Here, Sammy is the one that started the physical altercation. And what's surprising about it is this caused the Princeton Vance number 10 match against Andrade on Rampage this Friday, which will be live, which is Mask versus Andrade's AEW career, to be canceled. And instead will be replaced with the Dark Order versus Death Triangle for the Trios Championship. Now, I'll admit that's a good alternative to what we were originally supposed to get. But the reason a lot of people are disappointed that the original match is canceled is because speculation has been, blown awry, if you will, on whether or not this would have legitimately been Andrade's last match or if he was going to stay. Well, here's the thing. Andrade may have had his last match last week on Rampage and in the company. Now, I'm not saying that's entirely true. But what happened is Sammy's the one that started the physicality, but he was allowed to stay. And Andrade's the one that was sent home. So I ask you this. What sense does that make? Now, take into consideration that this is the third, fourth, fifth, sixth altercation backstage within AEW in just 1 year, and we're not even out of the year. It's agreed upon that it's not a good look for AEW with that kind of behind-the-scene atmosphere. But this is the second, third time since, Sammy's been with the company, and even this year to an extent that he's had an altercation, with somebody. And like I said, silver lining is him and Eddie hashed it out. At least they, patched things up, I guess, sort of. Maybe, I don't know. But it sounded like that the last time I heard about it. But what's crazy is, when Sammy got allowed to stay and Andrade got sent home, a majority of the locker room wasn't happy. And you know what? They have a right to not be happy when it comes to that decision because they know the reputation Sammy has. They know the reputation Sammy has. And, when you have your entire locker room, not being happy with the fact that the person that started the physical altercation, the person that started the whole social media beef with the other person, gets to stay, and the other person that, didn't start it at all and everything, or was pretty much an innocent bystander by default, as crazy as that sounds, is the one sent home, basically because he defended themselves. That's not a good look. That is doing exactly what a lot of people who talked about this today and yesterday and so on have said. That right there is showing blatant favoritism. When you do not send the person that started this whole shenanigans, this whole BS, not just on social media, but physically behind the scenes, when you allow that person to stay and still compete in the main event, and on top of that win the main event, that's not a good look for you. Because what you're doing is you're showing favoritism to that person, even though you should know that person's the reason the altercation and the social media beef and all that started. It's not a good look for you. And I'll tell you what, it's also not a good look for, or it's not a good look for your company. Because now, more than ever, you cannot tell me this without a shadow of a doubt, more than ever, you're going to have people in that company alerting Brian Alvarez, alerting David Meltzer, alerting Sean Ross Sapp, and all reliable sources. Andrew Zarian of the Madman Podcast, you name it. More than ever, you're going to have talent saying, we want out of here. We want out of this company. We want to leave because our boss obviously is showing favoritism to certain people who shouldn't be shown favoritism because they're nothing but troublemakers. I mean, what everybody talking about this tonight or last night has said is true. If anything, if you're going to send Andrade home, you should have sent Sammy home. I mean, what, did you not have Jake Hager, on standby to be Jericho's partner? I'm just saying. If you're going to send Andrade home, send Sammy home, but apparently that didn't happen. And it's a blatant show of favoritism. Now, Tony Khan could come out and say, I wasn't there because I was taking care of Jacksonville Jaguar business, so I didn't know. He can come up with an excuse like that. But even if he was to come up with an excuse like that, and maybe let's say that's true. How does somebody not contact him via phone and tell him what happened? Well, obviously somebody did, but they didn't tell him the whole story. And I guarantee you, if he finds out via social media or by others that were around the whole story, he's either got to, A, justify that decision of sending Andrade home by sending Sammy home as well. He's either got to do that, or he's got to give Andrade what he wants. If Andrade doesn't want to be there because of people like Sammy Guevara, who like to cause trouble, then let Andrade go. Let him go. So you lose Andrade El Hidero, and he goes back to WWE, becomes Andrade Cien Almas, aligned once again with Zelina Vega, or maybe aligned with Charlotte Flair. Yeah, let him go if he doesn't want to be there. But instead, he'd rather send him home. He'd rather send him home, hoping that he'll probably come back the following week or this Friday. This whole situation, this whole scenario does not make him, that being Tony Khan, and AEW as a whole look good. Everybody talks about the fact that Tony Khan needs to stop taking all this responsibility on himself. Even if he's not there, he needs to stop taking all this responsibility on himself. And that's true. He does. But why doesn't he? Why doesn't he do that? I'll tell you why. Because he has a goal. He has a goal, and that goal, that end goal, even if it's at the cost of his company, both his companies, his end goal is to prove that a wrestling fan can run a wrestling company better than those that were raised in the business to run a wrestling company. Better than those that competed in the wrestling business that have gone on to run wrestling companies, been successors to the original owners who are their parents. His end goal, in my opinion, and I don't think I'm alone in this, is to prove that a wrestling fan can do a better job than those that actually know what they're doing and have been in the business their whole lives. That's why he doesn't ask for help, because he wants to prove a wrestling fan can do it better. And look, let's make something perfectly clear to Tony Khan, okay? I don't know if he listens to my videos, my audio videos, whatever. Let's make something perfectly clear to Tony Khan. When wrestling fans, content creators like myself, like Just Alex, like JD from NY206, like Jason Solomon's the Sounds Off, there's Snack Daddy, OTRS Central, Good Mic Work, Brian Alvarez, Dave Meltzer, because to an extent, even though they've been in the business a long time, they too are content creators now. Dave Meltzer, Brian Alvarez, Andrew Zarian, the list could go on and on and on. Chase Oliver, you name it. Brian Zane, Wrestling with Regret. Again, the list can go on and on. Cultaholic, Walk Culture, Pod Fun Known. When all these people that have had, all these people that are content creators who have some association with the business, some contact with the business, and all that. When they come out and they say in their videos, their reviews, their recaps of Monday Night Raws, Friday Night SmackDown, Thursday Night Impacts, Tuesday Night NXTs, and the list can go on. Pay-per-views, like the upcoming Bound for Glory, this Friday, or previous Bound for Glories, WrestleManias, Royal Rumbles, Money in the Banks, Extreme Rules, so on and so forth. When all of us come out and we, in those recaps, those reviews, express frustration, vent our anger, and say that we could do a better job than those that are running things right now, we're not coming out and saying, hand us the book, Vince McMahon, hand us the book, Scott D'Amore, hand us the book, people that run New Japan, hand us the book, people that run MLW, and so on. The list can go on and on, as I mentioned. We're not telling them directly, hand us the book, and we'll show you how it's done. No. When we say we could do a better job, we are expressing our frustration. We are venting our anger. We're not coming out and saying, telling them, hey, we're not coming out and directly telling them in a video conference call, hand us the book, we'll show you how it's done. No, we, in our recaps, in our reviews, are venting our frustrations. We are expressing our anger. We are basically saying, what we're saying is, this is how we would do it. We're not saying, hey, give us the book, give us the booking book, give us a piece of paper, we'll do it for you. No, we're venting our frustration. And that's it. That's it. We're not saying we're going to take the first flight to Stamford, Connecticut, or to Toronto, Canada, Nashville, Tennessee, to the headquarters of WWE or Impact Wrestling. We're not coming out and taking the first flight to New York, to the headquarters of MLW. We're taking the first flight to Tokyo, to the headquarters of New Japan. No, we're not doing that. We're not doing that just so we can go into the offices, take the books and say, here's how it's done. Da, 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 da. No. We go on camera, we go on the audios, and we express and vent our anger. We express and vent our frustration. We do not seriously and legitimately hope and pray people will take it seriously. All right? Because we know even if we had the opportunity to create our own wrestling companies, we would need people that know what they're doing to help us, to back us up. People that have experience in the business. That's the same with any job, any business venture. You need people that have experience in that field to help you out, to help you grow your company, to grow your business. You just don't you just don't take it all upon yourself with only a few people in certain key roles, to, probably spread some of the responsibilities, but very thinly. You don't take most of it upon yourself just to prove a point. Just to prove a point that a wrestling fan could do a better job than those being in the business for this long. Longer than them, I should say. You don't do that. Because when you do that, you make mistakes. You make mistakes, and you get called out for it. You get called out for it. And when it comes to not doing the right thing and sending Sammy home along with Andrade, that shows you made a big mistake, because that shows to the people that you are nothing but a fan that shows favoritisms to his favorites. And you're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to do that. I go back on the Sonic the Hedgehog comic book by Archie Comics. Okay? And when Ian Flynn came on board, a lot of us were happy. A lot of us were happy that he was running things. He was writing the stories. We were happy because he, like a lot of us, was a fan of the Sonic and Sally relationship. But he knew, despite how you feel about him, he knew that he couldn't show favoritism to that couple. He couldn't just say, I'm instantly putting them together. No, he knew he had to build it back up. He knew he had to, basically point out to those that were wondering why it's so popular, why it's so beloved. He had to show them the reason. He had to give them reasonings for it. He had to build a story for it. He couldn't just do it like that. All right? Because if he did, it just shows he's a fan. And he's showing favoritism. He couldn't just incorporate his characters from other M or any of his fan works into the story, make them the main characters, because that doesn't make sense at all from a story standpoint, but also it shows favoritism on his part. He knew he couldn't do that. He knew it. So he had to take his time. He had to show he would be unbiased. Whether we agreed with his decisions or we didn't, he had to show it. He had to constantly show it and prove himself that he belonged. And as a result, guess what's happened? He has gone on to write for other comics outside of Sonic. He was retained to be part of the IDW run. He was brought on to write for episodes of Sonic Boom. And he was brought on to help out in the writing, not the complete writing, but help out with the story writing, of the upcoming Sonic Frontiers, video game. That's what he has accomplished. That is what he's achieved because he took his time. He learned from any mistakes that he made. He learned from them. He learned that he couldn't do things his way. He couldn't show favoritism. And because of that, he has been rewarded with opportunity after opportunity after opportunity, despite how we feel about it. And Tony Khan, right now, he's in a similar situation. He's in a similar situation where he has a lot more learning to do than we thought. Because he's doing exactly what you're not supposed to do. And by not doing anything about the Sammy Guevara-Andrade thing, by sending Sammy home along with Andrade, it shows that he's showing absolute favoritism. And now it puts someone like Chris Jericho under the scope, because now people are speculating, is Chris Jericho protecting him? Is Chris Jericho saying, hey, you send Sammy home, I won't be here? Is that what's going on? You know what it also does? It puts Ty Mello, the former Ty Conte, under the scope, because people might be starting to think, is Ty Mello giving Tony Khan special favors to keep Sammy out of trouble? It's going to put her under the scope. It's going to put her under the scope. It's going to make her look bad, not just in front of the fans, but in front of the people in AEW. Because the suspicions will start to arise. Tony Khan does not need this kind of crap and drama behind the scenes, because he's got to remember, he's got an important date and year ahead of him. Next year, he's got to start prepping and planning and preparing himself for the future of AEW on television. Because he doesn't know whether or not they are going to stay on the Turner networks or they're going to have to go somewhere else. He doesn't know if he's going to get that big television deal to stay on the Turner networks and thus allow the AEW programming to migrate over, or migrate over as well to the streaming service, which right now is HBO Max, and who knows what it's going to be called next year. He's in a position right now where he's not going to get any of that if this keeps up. He's got to remember, he's heading into this year of importance when it comes to television rights. He's heading into this year, and if this kind of crap keeps going on, yeah, the viewership might be up to a decent level, but like I said in my Topics on My Mind video, and you can watch an insert of the clip today as well, it's not going to matter. Because that's all it's going to do, all it's going to be happening, all people at WBD, Warner Brothers Discovery, is going to be seeing is AEW going poof, into oblivion. And Tony Khan can't afford that. He can't afford that. It's one thing to step up and suspend your EVPs, strip them of the Trios Championships. It's one thing to suspend your World Champion, strip him of the title. Even though he's going to be gone with injury, it's one thing to strip him and maybe even consider buying out his contract. It's one thing to step up and show, hey, I'm a boss, this is what I'm doing. And that's great. But it's another thing not to do something and not to do anything about something like this. Now, I don't know if Tony Khan has an issue with Andrade, which is why he shows favor to Sammy, even though he shouldn't. I don't know. I don't know if he shows favoritism towards Sammy because he has an issue with Andrade. Again, I don't know if maybe it's because Chris Jericho's protecting him or Ty Mello is showing certain favors to Tony. I don't know. I do not know. But I do know this. Ladies and gentlemen. This behind-the-scenes drama and bullshit needs to end. It needs to end. And if Tony Khan doesn't do something about it, whether people agree with it or not, WBD will force him to do something about it. And they may force him to do something about it by threatening not to renew the contract with AEW, take AEW off the Turner Network sooner rather than later. Not saying that will happen. But that might be something that occurs. And if that's something that could come to fruition or come to light as a possibility, Tony Khan's not going to want that to happen. So he's got to shape up, or AEW is going to ship out of the Turner networks for good. And whether you like David Zaslav or you don't, and the decisions he makes, him and his team have enough power to basically make sure, something like AEW doesn't get picked up by anybody, because the boss is not a responsible boss. And I know Tony Khan doesn't want any of that. He doesn't want any of that. Now, I don't know if Tony Khan is getting into the mindset that Vince McMahon once got into, now that the MLB playoffs are just around the corner. I don't know if he's just going to throw together certain special cards once in a while because, he has to move to certain dates and all that because of the playoffs. And he's just going to throw special cards together to get people's attention and stuff like that. I don't know. I don't know if he's going into that phase of, well, the playoffs are here and the NBA season's starting. Well, I'm not going to put too many good shows on for a while. I mean, once in a while I will, but not too many. I hope he's not getting into that mindset, because if he is, that's not good. And his thing, on top of that, if he's getting into that mindset, not only is it not good, but if you combine with what's going on behind the scenes, that's really not good. It's really not good. So if I'm Tony Khan, and I see the backlash this decision is getting, then I do the right thing. I do the right thing, and that's today, if not already, if not this weekend, I make the announcement that not only has Andrade been sent home, but Sammy has been sent home too. And then basically Sammy and Andrade will not come back until they get their act together, or until they squash this beef once and for all. Because again, this is not good. This is not good. And the fact that on top, and along with that, you have the question about Saraya, the former Paige. Yeah, she got physical, as much as she could last night on Dynamite with Britt Baker and Rebel, but she didn't take a bump. She was the one that got most of the offense in. So he's taking a chance with her, and if anything happens to her when she finally does get a chance to wrestle, if anything does happen to her where she ends up being re-injured to the point she can't compete anymore after that one match, that's not a good look either. Again, it would go back to showing that he's nothing more than a fan signing all this free talent because he wants to prove to people that have been in the business longer than him, that have competed in the ring, that have been raised in the business, that a fan could do a better job, and that's not what you do. Because like I said, when you start up any company, you make sure you gather yourself a team of people that have experience in that field. And right now, Tony Khan may have a limited team in certain roles, but not the kind of team he needs to help him out and make the right decisions. Everybody says he needs to get a social media manager, and he does. He does. He needs a social media manager to come in and oversee some of the tweets, maybe even have an agreement that, hey, if you guys tweet something on Twitter or you put something on Facebook that we feel is not right, in your contract, you granted us access to both pages, we'll delete them. He can make that happen. He can get somebody in, he can put it in the contract that your social media accounts are now coexisting with AEW, and that our social media manager can delete any which one they don't find appropriate, so that basically none of this gets out. And we can meet silently behind the scenes and talk and hash this out like men or like women, whatever the case may be. But yeah, this is not a good look. When you have somebody being the one that starts the altercation in any company, and that person gets allowed to stay, and the other that's defending themselves, is sent home, that's not good. And here's the thing. I don't know, again, like I mentioned earlier, I don't know what what the reasoning is. I don't know if, like I mentioned earlier, I don't know if Tony Khan has beef with Andrade. If he does, what's the beef? What's the reasoning? Did Andrade promise he would get him Charlotte Flair? Is that what he's promised him? Hey, I'll get you my wife, Ashley Flair, to come and be all elite? Is that what he promised Tony and he couldn't deliver because Ashley decided to stay with WWE? Is that it? Because I'll tell you this, if that's the reason why Tony Khan showed favoritism to Sammy, even though he probably knows or should know that Sammy, is the reason for all this happening, and that he too should be sent home. If that's the reasoning, well, guess what, Tony? I'm sorry. You couldn't get what you want. Okay? I mean, is the reason Miro, the former Rusev, not on television because Tony Khan didn't get C.J. Perry, the former Lana, to come with him? Or he was able to convince C.J. Perry, the former Lana, to come with him? Or come back with him? Is that the reason? Because if it is, that's petty. That is pettiness. Just because you can't get, the whole package doesn't mean you hold a grudge or you show favoritism even though you shouldn't. Or you keep people off television because you don't get what you want. That's petty. That is pettiness. And if part of that pettiness is a reason he's holding a grudge against Andrade and everything, not just because of what Andrade tweets out, because of what happened with Sammy last night in the past 48 hours, if he's showing favoritism to Sammy, even though he knows Sammy probably should be suspended too, or at least sent home too, because Andrade didn't get him what he wants, and because of what Andrade's been tweeting, that doesn't make you look good. It doesn't make you look good. And FTR made the return tonight, or last night on Dynamite. They made the return. And now they're going to be facing the Embassy, members of the Embassy on Rampage. I don't know if it's for the Ring of Honor World Tag Team titles or what, but they're going to face the Embassy. Finally you're booking them after what? Dax Hardwood, after they beat Aussie Open at the Royal Quest this past weekend for New Japan in London, comes out and says, hey, Tony Khan, we still work for you. Book us. Is it because he said that in front of a packed crowd that probably watched it on television, or not television, but on a streaming service, and it got your attention? And so now you have to basically retaliate by saying, okay, I'll book you? Well, if that's what talents have to do, then guess what? So be it. You should know better. And this is why people say you need a team. You need a team to where they book the matches for you or they write the stories out for you, and you either give you okay, you either make a suggestion, or say, let's go with this instead of this, and that's all. You don't just take it upon yourself because you want to prove a point. And that point being that a wrestling fan could do a better job than those that have been in the business longer and know what they're doing. That's not a reasoning to take everything upon yourself. So last night was not a good look. It was not a good look from behind the scenes standpoint. It wasn't a good look in front of the camera. It wasn't a good look, period. And I don't know, when you really think about it, I don't know if maybe Tony Khan's doing this, has been letting this all happen out of frustration of the fact that Vince McMahon's not running WWE anymore, and it's now Triple H that's running it. And he knows Triple H is going to kick his ass in the long run, which right now he's currently doing. I don't know, maybe that's why he's not putting more effort in. Because he doesn't have a senile old man to go up against. Instead, he has someone that's going up. Instead, he's got someone he's going up against that, let's be honest, is probably determined to get some payback in some form or fashion, down the line. And that being Triple H. So I don't know, but I do know this. If he wants to keep his show on the Turner Networks after next year, he wants to get him on that streaming service next year, he needs to get his act together, and he needs to take responsibility. He needs to stop acting like a fan. He needs to stop showing favoritism. He needs to stop taking, pleasurable gifts. If that's one of the things that's keeping Sammy out of trouble, he needs to stop all that, and he needs to grow up and be a boss. That's what he needs. Because I can tell you honestly right now from experience that when you get in trouble at your job, you lose privileges. You lose rights. You lose opportunities. I used to be a cart attendant, a cart advocate at my job. I had a few incidences happen, and guess what? I'm a cashier attendant, a cashier advocate. I have no problem with that because that's a good job too. But I'm not called upon as much anymore to be a cart advocate or even scheduled to be one because of my incidences. That privilege got taken away. Or that right got taken away. Okay? Tony Khan needs to step up, grow up, and tell everybody, like a Sammy Guevara, like a Chris Jericho, like a Ty Mello, and whoever's been causing trouble behind the scenes and trying to gain favoritism with him, that it's done. It's done. It's over. No more favoritism. No more friendship. I'm the boss. You listen to me. And if you don't want to listen to me, you don't want to get your act together, you get out. And that's it. That is it. And he has to start doing this now, or else he's going to have to start looking for a new network, next year. He's going to have to start doing a new, searching for, he's going to have to start doing a search online, figuratively, for a new home to live in. That's what he's going to have to do. This has to stop. This has to stop now. And Tony Khan, if you're someone that listens to the fans, listen to the words each and every one of us have said to you. Get your act together. Grow up. Stop being a fan. be a boss, and stop trying to prove a point that a fan could do a better job than someone that's been in the business. Because all it's going to do is bite you in the ass in the end. That's all I'm going to say, guys. Let me know what your thoughts are overall. How do you think Tony Khan should have handled this? Comment below. Live chat during the premiere. Like the video. Super thanks are after the premiere. Super stickers and chats are available and open in the live chat during the premiere. You'll find this also on my BW Roses Discussions podcast eventually. But let me know what your thoughts are, guys. And until next time, I'm out. Also, check out the Teespring store as well.